again. I'm back out on the Huckleberry.
Hello again. I'm back out on the Huckleberry Creek Trail, one of my favorite trails. I'm doing this voiceover because my narration was drowned out by the sound of the water. This is Huckleberry Creek with lots of spring runoff filling the rapids. Paintings in the forest are difficult because of the sun and shadows shifting so much through the trees. Right now there's a lot of glare on the water, but I know later the scene will mostly be in shadow, which is what I want. I was in the area the night before just hiking and getting ideas for paintings, and liked the light then, mostly in shadow. What's really drawing me to the scene is this line of rocks and rapids on the far bank in deep shadow. I also like the graphic quality of the drooping pine boughs on the far bank. It's a very complicated scene, so I'll need to simplify it. I can do this by honing in on a small section of the creek and editing out some of the rapids and rocks. I like how the rocks on the far bank and the log make a circular composition. I want to try to capture that in the painting so that the eye is drawn around the painting by following the lines and areas of interest. So I'll get set up. As always, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe. That really helps the channel find more viewers who might benefit and enjoy the content. This is a Multimedia Artboard with Clausen's number 15 oil primed linen. This is a bit rougher texture than the Clausen's 13 I tried in my last video. I'm using my normal abbreviated set of colors. You can find a link to my materials in the description below, but I tend to use Rembrandt, Winsor & Newton, M. Graham, and Gamblin oil colors. These are all pretty affordable and pretty consistent. I'm trying out a Rosemary and Co Bravura filbert. This is a bristle brush, a new premium but pretty affordable hog bristle from my favorite brush maker in the UK. This is supposed to be a non-splaying, very durable bristle. I'm not usually a bristle brush user because I don't like how they are so stiff and yet so easily become splayed. I do want to keep experimenting though. Maybe I'll grow to like them. I do like how bristle brushes clean up so easily. I start out by sketching the scene with Gamsol and burnt umber using a small Bravura filbert. Before I get too far along, I decide I need to wipe out the sketch and start over. Oil paint is very user-friendly that way. Now the burnt umber is just giving the panel an initial warm brown tone. I add in a few elements in alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue to help me keep the big objects in the scene separated. Then I do a quick Gamsol wash with a big broken-in bristle brush. I do this initial wash to add further depth to the underpainting. It gives a nice harmony to paint onto and can help the paint to adhere quickly to the panel once the wash sets up just a bit. The wash is usually dry to the touch in about 10 minutes. After I get a little pigment onto the panel, I wipe away some of the areas to create a light and dark value pattern. I find this really helpful to play around a bit with the composition before the wash is fully dry. I use the cotton rag, paper towels, and a wet brush at this point to remove paint and add back paint as needed to establish an abstract value pattern that I like. You can see by the end here that the wash has begun to set up, and I can add a little thicker, darker paint to reinforce the scene. Next I clean my palette and then quickly mix up a few piles of paint that roughly match the colors and values I see in the scene. I'm trying to minimize the number of colors. This can help to simplify the scene. and make it more unified and interesting as a painting. Here are the piles of color. You can see I keep my darks and lights separated. I have a few darks for the shadows and for the trees, and a few lights mainly for the colors in the water, both in the shadow and in the sun. I started in with the shadow colors. I try to stick with my mixed colors because they were all mixed during a short period of time. I find this is really helpful to capture a fleeting light scene. For instance, if you know you're going to lose your light and don't want to chase it as it goes away, you can mix all the colors while the light is consistent. I do adjust the colors as I go though, if I find they're not in harmony side by side on the panel. Painting flowing water from life can be challenging. In fact, water is almost always a challenge, but it can be so rewarding. The reflections, the depth, the motion, all make it a captivating subject. A tip for beginners is take a photo with your phone to refer to. It will freeze the motion and give you objects to paint. As you get more experienced, try glancing at the scene and then painting from your mind's eye, from your memory. It will be difficult at first, but with practice, you'll improve your visual memory and it'll become easier. Now I move to painting the brush and trees on the far bank. I'm trying to keep it loose and abstract since the focus of the painting is the rushing water. Now back into the rushing water. I make sure my brush is clean and paint the lightest lights first. From there I work into the next darker tone or value. The value differences are very subtle here in the lights versus the darks. Taking my time and observing carefully will pay off. It's those subtle hue and value shifts that will give it the feeling of light and depth. The rocks in the river are closer and partially in the sun, so they will have more chroma and greater contrast. Chroma is the intensity of the color, or in terms of oil painting, it's a more pure color, less gray, closer to straight out of the tube. The more distant objects have a less intense chroma, they become more gray. Back into the water with darker value and more vibrant color. This bright aqua green is mixed with just the smallest amount of phthalo blue and radiant lemon, both from Gamblin colors. Both of these are intense colors right out of the tube and very affordable. What can I say that I haven't already said in earlier videos? Here, the light is running away as the sun goes behind the surrounding mountains. I firmly set in my mind the scene I want to capture based on the hike I took last night and on what I've seen today. I want to capture a streak of light hitting the central section of the rapids. Painting in the forest is very challenging because the light is constantly changing and fleeting. But I want to encourage you to work up to it and know that it gets easier with practice. I wouldn't start with forest painting. Maybe start with a broad open scene like a pasture on a long summer day. Give yourself lots of consistent light. That will make your first attempt much easier. But with practice you'll notice that you can hold the vision of the finished painting in your mind and work toward it even if the light is changing. It helps to have a consistent process so you know where to reach with your brush to find the right paint, and when to switch brushes, how to clean your brush when it gets muddy, Those kind of things can make your experience much more enjoyable. And speaking of enjoyable, just spending the day outside in a beautiful place like this is really a blessing. I find it improves my mood and fills me with inspiration for future paintings. Here's the finished painting. I'm exhausted, but I'm pretty happy with it. I managed to keep the piles of pre-mixed paint to a minimum and to really simplify a complex scene. The last step, which I didn't show in this video, but I do in some other videos, was to take a big, soft, dry, clean brush and softly knock down some of the ridges and edges in the paint. This can really give the illusion of motion in water, but be careful to not overdo it. Too much blending on the panel will create mud or give it a silvery finish that can ring false. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.